All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cinema Regulars, where we see so many films in theaters that the employees know us by name and they don't ask us what movies we're seeing, they ask us how many. And today we are coming back from a 2-day outing seeing three movies. We saw The Equalizer 3. They had brought Goonies back to the theaters, and the two of us have both officially now seen the classic film They Live. It's hard to believe that neither of us have ever watched that one before. It's it's a little
Yeah,
not unpopular, but a little bit.
it's that kind of obscure movie that we both really enjoy. It's that weird like
Yeah,
'80s
I wouldn't
kind
say it's
of vibe
obscure,
that
but
I
it's
really
definitely
like.
not one of the most popular movies of the 80s. It went a little bit below the belt, a little
No,
bit under the radar, but still fairly well known. Um,
yeah. I mean, it gave us.
what's up?
I mean, it gave us the best improvised line of any movie ever, and that's "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I am all out of bubblegum."
Did you check? Was that improvised?
That was it. Was it was like. I'm fairly certain my findings yielded that it was
Huh.
improvised.
All right. Well, since we're already talking about it, do you want to start with They Live?
That would be a good one to start with, seeing as how like we start with the
Yeah.
older one. Yeah, I'd be cool with
And
that, especially since it's
yeah,
the
and I
freshest.
know we kind of declared that we'd only really be doing ratings for the new movies coming out because it's hard to rate
Hmm.
the classics that we go back to see in theaters that we've seen many times. But since this
Exactly.
one is, you know, kind of new to the both of us, you more than me, like I knew about the movie, like I knew what it was about, how it happens, like the little details of it, but I haven't actually like sat down and watched the whole things. Whereas when I brought it up, you didn't even know what it was. So you proposed that we actually do try to give this one a rating and just kind of, yeah, I mean, it's hard to do, being 35 years old, to this month, but
Hmm.
I mean, I think the two of us could
Yeah.
give it a fair shake.
Exactly. And just to clarify, yes, I just did another look for it, and I actually found a quote. When he was asked what he had to say about the ad lib, that
Yeah.
line. Apparently, it was like he was like, "Yeah, I couldn't tell you what it really means either. It was one of those, Roddy, you've got bullets on you, you've got a shotgun, you got sunglasses, you go into a bank, you're not gonna rob it. Say something. Action. I'm all out of bubble gum. Lunch. That was it. No more than that." I know, it's crazy.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and
It's awesome.
yeah, that's a pretty.
That line is so iconic, and like to know it was just something he just said is awesome.
Yeah, it's so iconic, but nobody knows that it's from Rowdy Roddy Piper and that it's not actually from Duke Nukem.
Exactly. Like for years, I thought that was a Duke Nukem line because people have memed it with Duke Nukem for so
Yeah.
long. Anyway, to the movie.
Yeah.
Did we want to do, since it's an older movie, do we want to do a synopsis of it, just a bit, like a general plot
Um.
kind of thing, or do we want to just leave that?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, what happens in They Live is, Rowdy Roddy Piper, the man. He strolls into town, doesn't have a place to live, doesn't have a job. So he um camps out at this little like homeless plot. They got all the tents
Yep.
set up, this little homeless community, right? And in the church across the street, there's like these guys, and they're making sunglasses, and they're talking about some kind of conspiracy or whatever. And when he puts on the sunglasses, he sees everything in black and white, all like advertisement or like magazines and billboards and stuff like that. It doesn't show what it actually shows, like the pictures. It just says words like obey and stay asleep and watch TV. Um,
Marry and reproduce. That's my favorite
That's my
one.
favorite. You know that. You know what? That one's my favorite too. Come to think of it. Uh, but the weirdest thing is that some of the people, when he looks at them through the glasses, is that they're not people. They're some kind of like alien race with weird, disfigured faces and stuff like that. And
They don't have skin. They're basically humans without skin.
are
That's the best way to
are
describe them.
humans like
They don't have
are
eyelids.
humans magenta and like Gogurt blue under the skin? Is that what you're implying?
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'm more talking like they
Yeah,
look
like
because
yeah,
like they don't have. They're basically humans without eyelids and
yeah,
lips
yeah. They
and
got the
skin.
teeth showing. They got the big bulbous eyes. For the majority of the movie,
Yeah.
you only see them in black and white. So, towards the end, when they blow up the transmitter that's brainwashing everyone into seeing them as humans and all that, you get to see them in color, and it's really cool because they're like magenta, purple, and blue, and they got like this bleeding red eyes. And they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that looks good. That yeah,
They
that's
did.
pretty much the movie. They fight back against this like secret society of aliens that are kind of doing a body
They're just.
snatchers scenario, but
I mean, not really. I mean, it wouldn't be really being body snatchers. It's mostly just they're invaded. They invaded without anyone noticing.
right, yeah. Well, I said yeah, that's why I said almost is because it's like the
Oh yeah,
people.
because they're recruiting humans, not becoming Well, they are.
I
They
meant
make it
okay,
look like they're
dog,
human, but they
dog,
aren't
dog.
actually. Yeah.
I meant more along the lines of that, like there's things pretending to be people in that essence.
Okay,
It's
that
like
makes more
body
sense. All right,
snatchers. Um,
fair enough. All right, cool.
and-
Anyway, on to our thoughts on the movie then.
yeah.
I'd assume.
The biggest. Well, I enjoyed it. I'll say that right off the
I did
bat.
too.
One of the biggest things I noticed is, and I'm gonna sound like one of those like, oh, they stole that from Fortnite kind of kids. But I noticed when the two main characters got into that that amazing 5 minute fight scene, I started recognizing some of the moves that they were landing, and I was like, oh my god, that's the cripple fight from South Park.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
Like you got like super excited. You're like, that's the cripple
Yeah,
fight from South
I saw
Park.
because there was a couple like hits that I'm like I've seen like that exact hit before. Whereas I've seen that and I was like, oh, South Park. I'm like, and then they just keep doing ones, and I'm like, yeah. So I don't be like, oh my god, they stole that from South Park like that. Oh, that's from South Park. Is I'd be like, oh, so I'm like, that's what they were parodying parodying is from that. It's always interesting to me because I've seen like a lot of South Park and Family Guy and shit like that. So when I see where those references are originally from, that just adds to like I'll get the reference later in the future. So
Hmm.
that was pretty cool. I wasn't even expecting that. I didn't know that was from anything.
Yeah, I do find that fun when it's like a show, like a show, especially like something like South Park and Family Guy that have been on for so long, and they'll parody things, or they'll like take things directly from other movies, but they'll put it in just as a normal scene in the show.
Yeah.
So it's just you unless like I when we watched that episode, like when I watched that episode for the first time, I didn't realize that. I was just like, oh, it's just a fight. It's just a fight.
Yeah,
And it's like,
exactly.
oh wait, no, they directly referenced a specific fight. Like that is cool.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on from the South Park aspect of this. Um,
Hmm?
yeah, I thought like I remember walking away from this movie feeling like if I was like a kid or a teenager, even an adult, if I was around for the 80s, I would have loved this movie. I would have probably gone and seen it twice.
Yeah, that. I remember walking. I walked away from it very, very, very happy with what the movie did. It was it's actually kind of interesting that it's coming back like now because it's the 35 years because like for some reason I've been seeing things on like my social media feeds and stuff like that. Like I'm seeing clips of this movie like in the days leading up to us going to see it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like people and like I look at the comments on like the clips I'm seeing and it's all people talking about like they're all just like wow, this movie was made in the 80s and somehow it's even more relevant today than it was then.
Yeah.
But no, taking away from all like the whole like metaphor or whatever that this movie is,
Yeah.
the movie itself is just a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was not
Like
bored like a single second throughout that movie.
no, and the funniest thing for me was the character that they had in the movie, a Griff, the kind of guy that like
Gilbert?
he's like or Gilbert was that his name? I thought his name was
Yeah.
Griff.
The main guy who was
Oh,
like passing out the making the
the
sunglasses in the first place.
yeah, like the leader or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought his
Gilbert.
name was Griff. I
No,
liked Griff
Gilbert.
better.
Well, that
Anyway,
wasn't his name.
well, whatever. Gilbert, I guess. Like it, every time he had his glasses on, like unless it was like like a close up of his face. Anytime I saw him with the sunglasses on, I had to remind my I had a moment where I'm just like Jack Nicholson. Like I don't know why, but he just seemed like
It's a
freaking Jack Nicholson to
it's a
me.
stretch. It's a stretch, but I get it. It's a stretch, but I get it.
Like just when he's in the different, he's got the slicked back hair and like he's kind of got that square-ish jaw. Like I'm like, yeah, that looks like Jack Nicholson. But it's not. It was not him. I
Yeah.
went Isaac mode and I looked it up and it was not Jack
Oh,
Nicholson.
we have to introduce the audience to Isaac mode. So
God.
I have dubbed this phenomenon Isaac mode. And it's one of the reasons why I much prefer watching movies in the theater with Isaac than watching them in my basement at home. Because Isaac, he will do this thing that
Mm.
pisses me off to no end. When I'm trying to show you a movie, anytime he even thinks that he might have a slight indication that he recognizes an actor from something else, he will immediately pull out his phone, look up the actor, and continue to scroll through their entire IMDb history instead of watching the movie. And you'll
It's the
do
thing
that
I'm
for like
guilty of.
5 to 10 minutes. So like literally everyone in my family refers to that as Isaac mode whenever they look up something.
It's a problem I have, but I'm sorry, but if I recognize someone and I don't look it up, it just sits there and festers in my brain, and that's how you get brain cancer. So I'm just like, I gotta
Not how
do it.
you get brain cancer. That's how you figure shit out for your own. You try to figure it out yourself, A, or B, wait till the end credits so you can check the cast, or C, just do it at the end of the movie.
Fair enough.
It's much more satisfying if you figure it out on your own.
I will say that
Got
like
it. That's the guy from Big.
I will say when you had us watch the movie Blood Punch, that was a
Oh, yeah.
great moment to figure out that like half the cast of that movie was from freaking Power Rangers RPM.
Half? I think you mean all?
At least three
Yeah.
quarters.
Yeah. Um, okay, last thing I wanted to touch on They Live before we get out. John Carpenter movie.
Oh yeah,
Good
I
one to
love
have
John
under the
Carpenter
belt.
movies.
Love John Carpenter movie. You have disappointed me, sir, on the way out the theater. You mentioned that you have never seen the original The Thing,
Yeah, no, I will have to watch that with you at some point.
which, I can understand, but then you followed that up with, but I did see the newer one. The 2011 completely CGI prequel to The Thing,
I
which is
will
probably
say,
the worst thing I've ever seen with my eyes.
I will say, half the reason I watched that movie was
Yeah.
because I found out what they had done with the movie. So
Yeah.
I I did not. Well, I shouldn't say I found out what they had done. So when I actively avoided the movie for the longest time, actually. But then one day I saw a clip. I saw not a clip, but I saw a picture of the actual. And this is why this movie actually pisses me off, because I got to this scene and then they just CGI'd it and it pissed me off. I saw the fully practical thing that they made for the scene where the dude just like opens up and it's like the scene that they see the big scene that they CGI'd in the movie.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, I
they
know what you
had
mean.
they had an entirely practical like mechanical thing set up to open up and do all of that, and they just scrapped it, just cut
Yeah.
it from the movie. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, that looks dope. I'll watch the movie. It wasn't in the fucking movie, and they CGI'd it, and I hated it.
Hey, we're reviewing They Live, right?
Yeah, they are. Anyway, ADHD powers activate. Anyway,
Like,
back to They Live. So some of my thoughts on the movie. One thing I really liked was the fact that Keith David was in this movie
yes, sir. You
alongside
know what else?
what?
You know what else he was in? The original The Thing.
Yeah, you were right. He was, yes. You want to know what
Not
else?
that you would know.
You want to know what else he was in?
What's up?
Another movie that we have seen this year.
I'm not playing guessing games on the podcast, dude. What is
Fair
it?
enough. He plays the cat in Coraline when we went and saw that.
Oh,
Yeah, he
I
voiced
did
the
not know
cat.
that.
Yeah, it was really it was
Yeah,
actually
I hear it now. But yeah, yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
also, if I'm not mistaken, isn't he uh one of the one of the guys combing the desert in Spaceballs?
My dad put on Spaceballs the other day. He is probably not because it didn't look anything like that guy.
Okay, fair enough. I thought he
You
was,
gonna
but
go
I
Isaac
didn't know.
mode during the podcast?
No.
Okay.
I just thought I could have swore I saw a video of him one day just being like could have swore I saw a video for him, but it might be someone else. Oh well. Anyway, but no, Keith David, that dude, like, it was always so weird when he would speak in the movie, because I realized a majority of the time that I have seen Keith David in things, I haven't seen him. He's usually a voice actor. Things that I
Yeah.
know him in. So like, because his voice is just so distinctive. Like, I hate to say this because I hate to out myself like this, but I heard him speak and I'm
Well,
like, that's the president from Rick and Morty. Like, I'm like I can't unhear it, and I hate that I can't unhear it. But like, anyway, moving away from that, like, all the acting in this movie was like, I don't want to say it was good because it's an 80s movie, so the
it
acting
was
back,
very 80s, and that's all you have to say about it.
yeah, but it was still impressive for like how much all the scenes that like uh Roddy Piper would get like beat up or tossed around or whatever. I'm fairly certain that's just him. Like
Yeah, dude,
they
he's a WWE guy,
like
so
they threw this man off the second floor of a building and down a hill for a shot.
yeah, yeah. And your point?
Which, by the way, is one of my favorite takedowns in the whole movie. Like
Yeah.
I love
All
that.
right,
I loved that. Anyway, moving on.
wrapping up. They Live. I personally am. I'm gonna give this a very high 8.
Unfortunately, yeah, I have to agree. Like this movie was a very, very good, movie, and I really enjoyed it. I will say it's a bit. Well, I'm not gonna give it a very high 8, but I will like it's still
Yeah.
an 8. It's like more of a like a middle to lower area because like
Okay.
I
Makes sense.
part of that is part of that is just like I know the movie. I know the movie is a bit older, but it's still there's some things that it's just like
Point.
eh. I don't know.
See, for me, my only gripe with it really is that it was fairly slow to start.
Yes, it took like
There's
forever.
just
I'm
a
like
lot of scenes of a lot of scenes of Roddy just walking around
the
and
annoying
walking around.
the annoying thing about it was like I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I know the basic beat. I know at some point this man is supposed to get sunglasses that let him see these things, and I'm sitting here and I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there and I'm like, when is this dude gonna put on these freaking glasses? Like, when is the movie gonna start?
Right.
And anyway, yeah,
Um. Okay.
8 out of 10 though.
Nice. But that wasn't the only retro throwback movie we saw that day, was it, Isaac?
No, it was not. I am so happy to be able to cross off being able to see Goonies in theaters, like off my movie bucket
Not
list,
only,
because that was
yeah,
awesome.
not only did we get to see Goonies in theaters, but we got to see Goonies in theaters by
That was
ourselves.
the best. Oh, I love that we got that movie to be by ourselves, because like I wanted to make jokes and talk with you like through the whole movie, because it's such a good movie
Yeah.
to like just have fun with.
Right. I mean, and I don't mind it like that because, you and I have both seen Goonies many, many, many
Oh
times.
yes.
So, I mean, it wasn't like we were missing out or anything, but we still like, we were still there in the theater seeing Goonies
Yeah.
in 2023. That's wild.
That is wild. It's what it was. What the 30th anniversary of the movie? Is that what it was?
I don't think it was an anniversary per se. I thought they just brought it back for a week.
Forgive me for
I
going a
can,
little bit Isaac
I
mode
can,
here, but I do want to see when the movie
yeah, yeah,
came
yeah.
out.
Just go, yeah, go check that real quick.
It is not an
Um,
anniversary, but the movie is almost 40 years old.
God
Movie
damn.
came out in 1985.
And still looking fine, might I
Oh,
add. I'm actually glad that they didn't do any like remastered for this
this
releasing. Like
movie.
as soon as like the text came on and that little skull and you go
Oh
into the
yeah.
eyeball, it looked gritty as fuck and I loved
If
it.
they ever if anyone ever dares to remaster Goonies, they need to leave. They are not welcome on the planet, because like that movie, part of what makes that movie so amazing is it is an 80s movie. It has that grit to it. Like
Yeah.
it's not a perfect movie by any standard, but it's just so good. Such a it's such a good 80s movie, you know? Like Like if
Yeah, I find myself still laughing at a lot of the jokes on there. Like, oh my God, the mama, like the mom Fratelli. God damn, she's so fucking funny, dude. Like every single like crack out of her mouth like had me goofing. Like still to this day, it's uh
what was like
oh,
one of
she's
them
so
that
funny,
you
man.
remember?
Oh, the fucking when they're tracking him down through the caves, and then she's like, "I smell." She's like, "They're around here somewhere. I can smell their bubble gum."
Oh
Like,
yeah. It was such a good one. I have to say, like, there's seeing it in theaters. Also, I have to admit, it's been like at least a year or so since I've seen Goonies. Since I've watched Goonies, and
yeah,
like, there's stuff about that movie that I was noticing that I like didn't notice. Like,
yeah, yeah. For instance, I never picked up on how, in my eyes at least, the kid playing Chunk, he felt to me like like a very, very young John Candy. Like he had John Candy energy, especially in the beginning of the movie when he's like at the house and he's like all excited to talk about like the car chase and all that.
oh yeah,
He just gave me John Candy energy, and it played off very well. You know, I don't think I would have noticed that if I hadn't been started watching movies so seriously
oh
recently.
yeah, and that's another thing is that like taking into account like actually seriously watching movies, it's nice to revisit these like that they're having so many retro
Right.
showings because like there's stuff because you know me, I'm a big actor guy. Like I actually like I appreciate actors in films, so I like to like when I see older films and I'm like, hey, it's that guy. Like this movie has a pretty star-studded cast by today's standards for who's in it, you know?
Oh
Like I
yeah.
mean, we first off we got the one the only Sean Astin, the Samwise Gamgee from The Lord of the Rings and several movies since. Like
Yeah.
that's a huge one right off the bat. We got Josh Brolin as the from Old
Yeah.
Boy.
Josh Brolin from
Yeah, from
Old
Old
Boy.
Boy. Yeah. We also have I'm gonna butcher his name.
Short
I'm gonna
round.
butcher his name. Uh,
Short round.
hey, yeah, Short Round. Yeah, from the Indiana Jones movies. Yeah, we'll call him that because I don't know his I can't pronounce his actual name. Like just the amount of
Racist.
people that are in this. Like I never noticed. Like because I've seen this movie like every couple years. I didn't even realize that the other girl, Patty, I think her name is in the movie, or Penny, something like that. Not the one.
Her name is like Sasha or
I,
something.
I don't know.
And you have no
Whoever
idea what
whoever
you're
the
doing.
one that isn't like way hornier for Josh Brolin than I
Andy.
remember. Whoever is the opposite of that.
Okay, that one's called Andy,
Yeah,
asshole. How about watch the
and
movie?
whoever the other girl is, like she's the mom. She's like the mom from Raising Hope, which is a show I really like. I like.
I prefer Raising Arizona, starring the one and only Nicolas Cage.
Fair
But
enough.
go on.
Cannot wait for our first Nicolas Cage movie review on this thing. It's gonna be so good.
Well, well, if they had brought Sympathy for the Devil to the actual fucking theaters, maybe we would
Fair
have.
enough. But anyway, moving on. Uh, speaking of what I said earlier, yeah, that's
Just
another thing I didn't notice about
yeah.
the movie is that like they really played into the whole cheerleader jock like hookup thing between Andy and Brandon. I want to say his name is right. This is Josh Brolin's character, Brandon.
Yeah, they called him Brand, right?
Brand, yeah, Brand, yeah.
Brand.
Yeah, that's just it's just interesting to see because like It's also another thing that I love about this movie. It is so refreshing to see kids playing kids. That is something
Yeah.
that is missing from movies nowadays a lot.
This movie that's almost 40 years old, and you're like, oh, it's so
Well, I know,
refreshing.
but you know what I mean, right? It's just nice to see a movie where kids are
Yeah.
actually acting like kids. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're acting
Or where they actually taught kids to play kids and they don't have 26-year-olds playing 15-year-olds.
that as well, but like, it's just like half the time nowadays that you see kids cast as kids, it actually like they don't act like kids because half the time they're in freaking horror movies. They're getting possessed or some crap.
That's
You know,
true.
like you don't. It's not.
Right.
Is it's also like the era of movies where they like have just a bunch of kids going on some wacky adventure. Like you don't get that as often as you used to back then. Like back then, Goonies, Stand by Me, like those movies like that. Like there's just kids going off and doing something. Sandlot, like it's just
Right.
kids. Like
Yeah.
they don't really do that anymore. They just send animals on those quests now.
They do. They do. All right. Yeah,
The movie
Goonies.
still holds up. That's all I gotta say. Like the
What
movie holds up.
movie still holds up. Well, we're both gonna give it a nice
I'm gonna give
big
it
old
two.
thumbs up.
I'm gonna give it two thumbs up. Two
You're
thumbs
gonna
up.
give it two? That's more editing work for me, asshole. But all right, two
Oh,
thumbs up
sorry.
from Isaac.
Just put the little ×2 next to it.
Thumbs two, my ass. All right. So now we will move on to the only brand new movie that we saw this week, and that's going to be rounding us
Hmm.
off with Equalizer 3. Um,
Oh yeah, I have to pull up my notes for
yeah,
this.
me too.
Okay, here we go.
We've kind of have an interesting system set up now since we started doing this. We don't talk to each other about the movie immediately after. I mean, immediate and not like our full thoughts. Like we'll maybe comment on a couple scenes or some of the actors or something, but we won't like give our full analysis on it yet. So I don't think either one of us even really knows what the other thought of the movie fully.
Yeah, and the interesting thing. So another interesting thing about this movie in particular as well is that like ever since John
Oh
Wick
yeah.
4 came out earlier this year, which we had already watched, which we we won't be covering because we watched it forever ago. But neither of us had seen any of the other movies in the franchise before we went like
Okay,
before
okay,
we decided
you're
we were going to watch it.
okay.
In other words,
That
we watched the rest of the movies leading up to
okay,
this for the first time.
you were leading a very dangerous misunderstanding that we didn't watch any of the
Yeah,
other
no.
ones before this one. No, but before we had decided to see this movie, we hadn't watched it. So very quickly leading up to the day we went to go see it, um we had watched the other two to prepare. And we had done this for John Wick. We've done this for Mission Impossible, and
Hmm.
we did it a little bit for Indiana Jones. I mean, we've seen them all
Yeah, it
already,
was a
but
nice refresher.
we refreshed ourselves before we went to go see. And right now, as we speak, the two of us are working our way through the other three Expendables movie before Expendables 4 drops next month.
Yeah, I still have to watch the other two and three. I've only seen one still.
Yeah, same here. But you know what? We got another month still before that happens, so we got time.
Yeah, so it's
Anyways,
nice because like we'll probably be talking a little bit about one and two,
right?
obviously,
Because
mostly because it's a franchise.
one and two are very fresh in our minds going into this. So I
Yeah.
find it beneficial. Do you want to go first on this, or do you want me to go first?
I actually do.
Okay, go ahead.
Uh,
I'll let you cook.
so, uh, yeah. So one thing, uh, so the opening scene for
Hmm.
this movie is probably the best cold open out of any of the three movies. Well, granted, the first one was kind of a lackluster thing because they were trying to set up this like they were trying to set up this how do you put it
But,
uh
he's like a
mysterious man thing. Yeah, he's just a guy, and then he starts doing this stuff. Like they had one for the second one, but like the cold open for this movie was like one of the hardest things I've ever seen.
yeah.
Like it was so good. Like moving
Do
spoiler
we want to move
country
into?
for like the rest of this.
Do we want to move that quickly into spoilers?
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so it, the movie opens up with just one of the coolest like openings for almost any of this kind of action
Yeah.
movie, which is another thing that I like about movies like this. Like I did like this movie. This movie was very good. But like we were talking before we went and saw this, like while we were watching the other two leading up to this, like what is it about this kind of movie that like it's just one man, just one dude who just demolishes like an entire organization of dudes
Yeah.
just to, like just on his own. Like John Wick has it. This one, the
Nobody.
Equalizer. Nobody. You brought up
Fucking
Drive with
fucking
Ryan Gosling.
fucking Drive falls into that category too as well.
There's a fifth one you brought up, and I can't remember it.
I don't remember it either.
But like, it was it was really good, and like it. One thing that was weird for me about this movie compared to the other two,
Yeah.
so the first one, the pacing of the movie is like, it starts slow because we're establishing this dude as like, you know, he's just a normal guy and he's just kind of lives on his own. He's a
Right.
little sad, but that's about it, kind of thing. And then he starts to, notice these things going wrong, with these people around him. So he decides to take matters into his own hands and,
And then that's and
use
then
his
that's when you're hit
use.
with like, oh, he's like some kind of machine that he's like that
Yeah,
cold, calculated killing machine.
but as what I'm trying to say is the pacing of the movie is start slow, amp up, and just fucking go. That movie just
Right.
kept going. The second one started really, really strong, kind of dipped down, like it gave you a mystery in the beginning, and it was going good, and it was like, it kind of kept you engaged through the whole movie. It was a little like kind of roller coaster type thing. This one was interesting with the pacing because it gave us, like, it came out boom, just right out the gate, like really, really, really good, and then it kind of took this slow down thing, which in most action movies like this, like I would criticize it for, but with what this movie is trying to accomplish in the series, in the trilogy, I hope it's a trilogy, it just stays a trilogy.
Yeah.
Uh, what it is trying to do with that interim where things slow down, I really enjoy it. Like it added it added something to the character that wasn't there originally, and I really liked that.
Okay.
Or what I should say is, so like uh little tiny bit spoilers, though not really.
Well,
Uh
I mean, at this point, we can probably jump into spoiler territory.
like So this movie ending with him like finding peace, like he feels like he's where he belongs, is a good
Yeah.
like it's a good kind of full circle thing because like at the beginning of the first one, he was kind of minding to his own. You know, like he used to be this badass dude, whatever. Like you find out later in the movie and all that, like he used to be this badass super spy, whatever. You know, he take care of all that, and uh, then like he faked his death, found love, and then his wife dies, so find peace in the life on his own, and like he feels like he found it, but he just like he didn't have it fully, kind of thing. Like he realizes as the movie goes on that what he had found wasn't peace; it was kind of like complacency. So as the series progresses, it's like the first one starts. He's not like he doesn't want like he doesn't want to get involved, but he decides to come out of retirement or whatever and do this, and he thinks, okay, this is what I'm meant to do, and that carries into the second one where he's helping these people, and like he makes peace with the fact, and by the end of that movie he makes peace with the fact that his wife is gone. He goes back home and stuff like that. And then this one ends with him finding a place in the world where he
Um,
really feels like he can stay here and he can relax. He doesn't need to work it. He doesn't need to do that anymore. I don't know. It's that's just my take on it.
yeah.
It's just my take on it. Like I like that kind of full circle wraparound thing.
Right.
It was kind of cool. I went a lot more in depth than I thought there, but like what I mean is that I hope that they don't try to milk this again, because like the movie has a very good ending. It had like some references in it that just kind of brought it full circle, and I really liked it.
Okay. If you
Uh,
were gonna give it a number rating, what would it be? I mean,
uh,
we'll do it. We'll do an official one at the end, but just off your head, what would it be?
this one would be like a 7, off the top of my head,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay. Um, my thoughts on it were a lot different.
Hmm.
So I'll start with some good things. Like you, I was also very impressed by the cold open.
Hmm.
There's a scene where he grabs a dude's gun, shoots the other guy, turns the gun around, jams it through the guy's eye, and then shoots somebody else with it.
Hmm.
And I gotta say the intro song that they played over the title card and
Hmm.
um that went unbelievably and unnecessarily hard.
Hmm.
And I've only had that like 3 times watching movies where like the intro song just goes so hard and I'm just like jamming, like so impressed by it. And that was Enter Nowhere, uh The Collector, and now Equalizer 3. Um so that was really good. I And then as you said, like right after that, uh he gets hurt and the pacing slows down to a damn near crawl,
Hmm.
and which I could almost forgive if that slow, uneventful crawl of pacing didn't take up the first entire half of the movie.
That is fair.
Yeah. I'll I will say he ends up in Sicily, which I really liked
Hmm.
that location. I feel this movie fit very, very nice in Sicily.
Hmm.
I don't think they could have, like, if they were gonna pick somewhere else, I don't think it would have played off very well. Like I think I really liked where they picked to make this movie. Sicily was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh,
Well, actually, the name of the town was, I believe, Adamonte.
thank you, but it was in Sicily,
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
so unnecessary correction. But thank you. Um, hon- honestly, one of my main gripes about it is that a lot of it didn't focus on him. There was like way too much side plot with like the CIA agent and like going unnecessarily deep into like the bad guys in the situation. Like I don't need to know about how the brothers of the mafia and their relationships are not good. I'm like, I don't care. It's like I don't care that the brothers are not, friends right now, or whatever. Um, and they actually like I was kind of upset and disappointed by this because I don't know if you picked up on it, but there was like a severe lack of visual action after the cold open. Like most of the time he does things, it's either like in the dark or off screen, and you're just coming back to him,
Mm-hmm.
or like he's like even in the final boss fight, he's just like lurking in the shadows while the other guy shoots a gun off, and then he attacks him from behind, and then he wakes up and he's drugged, and then he just slowly dies out like that. That's, I mean, the final fight in the first movie, he hung a dude from the rafters with a noose made of barbed wire, and he killed a dude with a hammer, wiped it off, and then put it back on the shelf for sale. The
Mm-hmm.
second movie ended with a giant, like, firefight in the middle of a hurricane in an abandoned town with fucking Pedro Pascal on a giant tower, and then he threw him off at the end. And this one, he just ties him up, gives him meth or whatever, and then he just lets him go as he crawls away, overdosing and dies in the middle of the street. And I'm like, it's very like lackluster on the action part. I'm not saying like it's a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not up to Equalizer standards. You know what I mean? Like
I will. I.
they could have replaced him with any other action guy. It could have not been Denzel. It could have been like literally this could have been its standalone movie, honestly, because frankly,
Mm-hmm.
frankly, you almost didn't need to see the other two. There's maybe a
That
there's
is.
maybe a flash of he's got like a memory flash of his friend once, and then there's like a little nice uh thing at the end where, spoiler alert, they reveal that the CIA agent was his friend's daughter. But outside those two moments, they don't reference anything the first two. You don't even really need to know anything about him outside of that. Like they keep
That
it fairly
is.
self-contained.
Yeah. That is. That is. That is true. Like it. I will. I will give you. I will give you that. That there. I didn't realize it until after you said. Well, I guess I did. I was just more focused on the story
Yeah.
aspect of the
The
movie.
story was good. Don't get me wrong. This was a good movie. I enjoyed it, but it just didn't live up to the other two Equalizer movies in my eyes. I will.
No, the other two. I will say the other two went way harder than this movie
Yeah,
did.
and
The other two had
that
so
maybe
much
because
better.
Denzel's getting up in years, he can't do the crazy action stuff anymore, and they wanted to make this last one to do a good, decent goodbye to him, to the character. I mean, and I mean, they picked a perfect time. because if they had waited any longer, like I'm worried that they would start dipping into Harrison Ford territory, where he's clearly
Yeah.
too old to be doing shit like this, and they just,
Mhm.
just get out there, make the movie no matter what, and whatever. They definitely don't need a fourth one. This was a good end
No.
to the character, a
Yes, it was.
decent time to end the character. Um,
Mhm. I
um,
will. I will say that while the action from Denzel, like the stuff he was doing,
yeah,
like in the movie, or the stuff that he would normally have done in other movies,
yeah.
like it was it was lacking in the sense that,
He
again, a lot
he
of it
didn't
was
even.
he wasn't like he was in the shadows for a lot of it and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I will say though, the times in the movie where we do see him actually doing it are very impactful, and also there were some other things where he wasn't even doing the kills, like that went really bad. Like, wow, like the scene where the mafia dudes are like trying to get like a payment or something
Where
from
Yeah,
this
yeah. Where
dude.
he grabs his finger and he like bends. He's like, I'm compressing the nerve there.
Like that, okay, that scene for him, yeah, that scene for him is like really good, and then like him just like you didn't even see it come, like I didn't even see it coming immediately after that. Like they all left the restaurant, he's like, last you see him, he's still just sitting there eating, and like they leave and one of the dudes just goes, go get the car, or like tells one of the other guys, go get the car or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're just talking, and all of a sudden it just comes out of nowhere, and he just like
I
fucking kills all of them.
I will say this movie does have jump scares, which is weird for an action movie. The Denzel Washington jump scare.
Well, that's something I actually really liked about the first one. Is it's like, dude, this guy is like a horror movie villain for assholes.
Yeah.
Like, like there was literally the scene in the first one where the dude like brings the guy into the security office and he notices him standing behind him on the camera, and when he turns around he's just not there, and that like,
Yeah.
oh, it's that stuff is so good, and I like when he does that where he just pops up out of nowhere and just kills a guy. Like it was so good, and like it didn't happen as often as in the other ones, but it was still very well done. Like in this movie, like when it happens, it's still pretty decent. I will say one thing I get sick and I did get kind of I noticed, and I got kind of sick and tired, and I get kind of sick and tired of
You get kind
in
of
these
sick and tired
movies.
and tired and sick and sick and tired and tired and sick.
Sorry, is when he breaks into an area and then he walks away and you see all the people that he killed to get in there.
Yeah. And then they
Like
just
like
don't do that at all. They don't show you anything about it.
I do like that in the scene in the opening scene when the bad guys show up and like they're walking through the house to get to him and you see all the
Right,
people
but
dead that he killed. Like that's
right, but
cool because they
that's a
flash back
cult.
to it.
Okay, but they flash back to it in first person point of view, so it's not even really him, and then it's really blurry and
Fair enough.
yeah, I no, don't flashback. If you're gonna flashback, do like a full cinematic flashback. Don't give me like a weird you know, blue tinted wiggly first person version of it, dude. Show me the whole
Fair
thing.
enough.
I don't know. I didn't care for the flashback part in his mind. Yeah, I feel like I've been too negative on this. I will say one more thing I did like about it. In the bad guy, like at the funeral for the main bad guy's brother when he dies, they're walking around like this fancy house, and in in the background as he's walking past the room, there's this gigantic bust that's like it's like 5 feet across. Like it's like 5 feet in diameter, and it's just this like
It's like the
angry
size of a
looking.
whole ass human.
Right, it's like 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide. It's like this giant, angry, bald guy's head, and that was probably the funniest damn thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. going back a bit, there was a scene I was talking about, and I got distracted, and I was talking about it. But like, even some of the things that went hard in this movie weren't even like things that Denzel did like himself. Like two that definitely come to mind. One in that scene. It's the lesser of the two. That's like immediately following that scene that you were just talking about. Uh, they like saw through a dude's hand, put it in a bucket of ice, and send him off with the bucket of ice to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like that
I
was
mean,
like
yeah.
that's cool.
I mean
Or
that was cool. That did go hard, but again, that also proves my point. They were spending a lot of time on the side characters when I would rather be watching Denzel.
that is fair. Because like I think what they were kind of trying to do is they were like, he's recuperating, he's getting better to get to the
Right, but
point
he was
where he
recuperating
can
and
do.
getting better for the full fourth, like the first half of the movie.
That is fair because like I another scene that I did want to talk about away from Denzel that was away from Denzel though was like the scene where one of the first scenes that we actually see the main bad guy,
Yeah,
the mafia head or whatever.
right.
Uh uh he's like trying to get this payment from these people or whatever, like this dude, and like I'm sorry, I can't do that or whatever. And like as he's like in that scene, they panned back and you saw this like the grandpa or whatever like sitting in the wheelchair, and as the dude's leaving, they like throw the grandpa out the
Yeah.
window hanging from it. Like I'm just like damn, like wow,
Yeah.
that just happened. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and they said don't take him down, leave him there for everyone to see. And I'm like, God damn, bro.
Like I will say,
There's
yeah,
children out here.
while they did spend entirely too long away from Denzel, I will admit that. Like the stuff that they were showing in some of that was like mostly just setting up this dude's really really evil. I am
Yeah.
kind of I will say another thing I am extremely disappointed in, and it does have to do with the action. I was 100% expecting this movie to end with these guys like storming the town that he was a part of and him just demolishing these dudes all over town. I was disappointed with the final fight. One being as like quiet as it was, like dark and like you don't see a whole
I'm
lot. I will say it was
yeah.
one thing I liked about that final scene is he garrots a dude to death so hard that he cuts the dude's head off.
Yeah.
Like that was cool, and like it wasn't even like in the fact that he just left the head on the guy. So that way, when the bad guy like finally wakes up and he's going through his like house and seeing all these people that this man has killed to get to him, like
Hmm.
like he like bumps up against the body, like he touches the guy to be like, "Are you okay?" And his head just falls off. Like I'm like, on the one hand, it sucks that it wasn't this big like firefight, but I do have to say the man just exudes terror onto these guys. Like the dude just like has this
Yeah.
presence of horror around him.
Yeah. It's just too bad we didn't get to see any of it.
That is true. Like it's just it seemed like his plan
My
in this
guy,
one
my
was
guy,
just to psych the dude out.
my guy. He didn't even use the watch in this movie.
Yeah, that was something I didn't like. Is that he put the watch away and like he
In the cold open, he just puts 9 seconds on the watch. He says, "You have 9 seconds to do this," and then when it's up, he just goes and attacks.
like
And
that's
so
his whole
that's
thing
not really what
too.
he did with the other one. Well, no, because he like times it out, and then he like counts along with it, and he like it zooms in on like different things he's noticing around the room, and then it just like clicks action. Then it goes and like he's very calculated, and he like barely touched his watch. I think he might have just beeped it twice, and like, but all he did like he just like clicked it, and the beep sound happened, and then never addressed it again.
Yeah, I will like that's something that's like
That was kind of his thing, dude.
that was his thing in like the first two movies is that he's got all those like even in that opening scene, like something I really liked is like he's literally laying out the fact that I am going to demolish all of you, and they're all just like making like he literally said, uh, I believe the
He
side.
said, he said your guard is standing 1 foot too close. He's already dead. He just doesn't know it yet.
Well, he said your guard is standing 1 foot too close, and because of that, the guy over there is dead, and he just doesn't know it. Because he was gonna shoot. Because he was gonna turn, grab the
What
gun,
do you,
shoot that
well,
guy
they're both
first.
dead. They were both dead.
Well, true.
It means the same
It's just
thing.
him just like doing that is
A
just.
distinction without a difference. Thank you.
I didn't even notice that he. Well, I guess I did notice that he didn't do it because like he tossed the watch away towards the beginning of the movie. Like he put it in a drawer and like shut the drawer. And, like he grabs it at the end, but
He
he
was
doesn't
still
use it.
wearing it. He was. I don't know. I was watching the movie. I didn't even notice he took it off.
Yeah, he did because there's a scene later, like when he goes to like before he goes to take those guys out or whatever. Like he opens the drawer and he grabs the watch out. And I'm like, oh
Yeah, I didn't notice that scene either, and I watched all the movie. I don't even know how that
yeah,
happened. So either you're lying, either
I'm
you're
gaslighting
lying to
you.
me,
But no, like
or the movie was so boring that I didn't even register the things that were actually happening on screen. All right. So wrapping up Equalizer 3, I will say that it is a fairly decent movie in its own right,
mhm,
but it pales in comparison to the other two movies, especially right after 2, which in my eyes is the superior of the first two.
mhm.
So you jumped from the highest movie in your franchise down to the lowest, which is gonna hurt. I will clock this in at a medium to high 6 on my meter here.
That is fair. And to like I was gonna give it
See the things I'm saying are changing your mind. That's why I didn't want to talk about it right after the
yeah
movie.
because when I started this, like I had this movie set at like a higher 7 or like a medium 7.
Yeah.
But, like I want. Let me. Did I even put this on my list yet? Of all the movies we've seen, I have not. So dang, I meant to, but I never did. Like,
Also, you don't have to agree with
no,
me.
I don't.
It'd be more interesting if our numbers were
Well, no,
different.
I'm going to keep it a 7, but it's a much lower 7 than I originally had it put at because you did bring up
Yeah.
some good points that I that I noticed because like let's put it this way, like I have given a lot of 7s this year.
Yeah.
And like as we're talking, like
Yes.
I'm I'm trying to place this in my list of movies we've seen,
Yeah.
like where I would put it in the ranking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm already have it below the Meg 2. Like
Really? I wouldn't even do that. Meg 2 is far too silly.
well, see, here's the thing: is you got to remember, I like that. I like those silly movies. Like the
All right.
At least the Meg 2 was gripping for half of it.
That's a fair
At least it
statement.
had action.
I'll accept that. All right, all right, that's fair. I'll let you cook here. All
But,
right,
but yeah, I'm gonna
so
say a very low. I'm gonna say a very low 7.
okay, okay. Uh, all right. So with that, that'll wrap up our 3 movies this week. I think the next movie we'll go see will be on the 19th of September,
Maybe.
and we haven't really figured out everything that we're going to see as of late because we kind of, uh,
Ran out.
drained out our movie theater because we ran out. We've seen everything that they're showing right now, and we were just waiting on a couple more things. We have a lot of movies coming at the end of September and a lot coming at the beginning of October. So we might push off the 19th for that one. But the next one we are definitely reviewing up in line will be A Haunting in Venice.
Yes.
Yes. And this will be interesting
Mm-hmm.
to see A Haunting in Venice.
I feel like
Because
this is gonna be one of those movies where, like, there are some movies that we go see where
yeah.
where I look at it and I'm like, we're gonna have very similar thoughts on this movie. That
Yeah.
movie, I have a feeling we're probably gonna have very different thoughts on that movie,
Okay.
just because
All right. Well, yeah.
it's gonna be
That'll
interesting.
be interesting to see then.
Exactly. Another thing that I wanted to ask if we wanted to do,
Yeah.
as I alluded to not too long ago, is our list of movies that we've seen in the year that we put on a big uh ranking kind of thing.
Right.
Did we want to cover our top 10 and our bottom 10 at the end of the year on here?
Of course. It's
Exactly.
gonna be its own video, my guy.
Well, awesome.
Whoa, what did you just do?
Uh-oh. Oh, wait, there we go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. I don't know what you did, but never do that again. I swear to G.
But no, definitely. Yeah,
All
so at
right.
the end of the year, we will have our top 10, bottom 10 of the year.
Yes, sir, from each of us.
That'll be
All right. Okay, now that should wrap up this week's podcast
Mhm.
of Cinema Regulars.
yeah.
Um,
Don't know when the next one's gonna be, but it definitely will be about a haunting in Venice.
yes,
At the very
and
least.
some others, maybe. At the very least, A Haunting in Venice.
Exactly.
But until next time, until that happens, we don't have an outro catchphrase yet.
Need to come
So
up
we'll
with
see you.
that.
We should. See you at the theaters.
Yeah.
Roll credits.
There we go. There it is.
That's a wrap. Roll credits.